Good evening, and welcome to another episode of the DMV Daily Radio Show. I'm your host, Hassan Giordano, a.k.a. Mr. Politics, back in the building. Another lovely Monday. And today, we want to discuss the scandals that are brewing right down in our neighbor in Virginia. With blackface and white robes, is it possible for Governor Ralph Northam to stay the course during the next few years of his term, or will he have to step aside following calls of resignations from everybody in his own party? And with sex scandal allegations emerging recently regarding Virginia's lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax, will he even be around to assume the office if Governor Northam decides to step aside? All that more on today's DMV Daily Radio Show. But before we get into that program, as always, I got to let you know, pay the bills, and talk about the fine sponsors who make this program possible, such as that stellar legal team known as the Bates & Garcia Law Firm, specializing in criminal defense, real estate, and bodily injury cases. Their lawyers will always be late for your program, like I haven't. Oh, matter of fact, went off base. Bates & Garcia is Maryland's legal dream team, so make sure you contact them today for your free consultation, and trust and believe they will not be late to your trial or to that meeting to get the bag. 410-814-4600 is the number. Tell them DMV Daily referred you, and they'll definitely give you a special discounted offer. You got Mary over there. She's on maternity leave. Wonderful attorney. Tony Garcia, of course, named partner, as well as Ivan Bates and the entire crew over there making it do what it do.
That's why that's why he's not here. He's in court.
410-814-4600 is the number. This show's also brought to you by those savvy political strategists at Politicom Strategic Solutions, who have mastered the art of political communications and successfully gotten people elected to office since the 1970s. If you're looking to run for office in 2020, make sure you give them a call today to get your campaign set up, the user-friendly website, integrated social media sites, campaign plan, and more to ensure success in 2020. They can be reached 240-242-7505 or on the web at www.politicomsolutions.com. And I was speaking with one of the founders of the firm today, who actually founded it with Art Murphy back in the 70s. And he told me, because he's very Afrocentric, he says, Hassan, if they call and they contact us during Black History Month, we'll definitely give them a discounted rate. So reach out to them today. 240-242-7505 is that number, politicomsolutions.com, even though he feels Black History Month is every month of the year. So remember I said that, so when you call them about your discounted rate, make sure you let them know that it's every month of the year, so you can get a discount regardless of when it is. Now, also, DMV Daily Media is always looking to shake things up, and starting this month, we're going to be doing a lot of different things. We got the live stream program that's coming to you February 18th, President's Day. We got a new podcast that's going to be launched tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Of course, the highly anticipated Law and Disorder podcast with Ivan Bates is set to premiere tomorrow only on DMVDaily.news. You'll be able to, hear it other places as well, but it's all connected to DMVDaily.news. So you want to make sure that you go to the website tomorrow and find that premiere episode of Law and Disorder. Of course, the Annapolis report comes out each and every week. This week we combined in 2 weeks because it was so much power-packed information. Some of the interviews that I did with some of the legislators had to actually be redone and then merged together. So you want to look out for that every Monday. Of course, you can always hear snippets of that report every Tuesday morning from 7:15 to 7:30 a.m. on WOLB 1010 a.m., the Larry Young Morning Show. But you'll get the entire report on DMVDaily.news. Now, you don't want to miss those podcasts. We got a few other podcasts in the works as well to be launched. We're looking to launch a different podcast every month that's produced here in-house, but we also want to make sure that we produce and launch your podcast as well. So if you want your own live stream radio show like this one, whether you want it every day like we do or once a week, if you want your own podcast like the Annapolis Report, like Law and Disorder, just give us a call today, 443 294-3900 is the number, or just shoot us email, info@dmvdaily.news, or just go to the website and sign up. You can become a citizen journalist. We need people to be able to write for the website. We always love stellar writers. I mean, and I talk about media all the time. I love media. It's a passion, just like politics is. But I can tell you one thing, and anybody who's in journalism knows this. You can do TV, you can do radio, that's all fine and dandy. But the true essence of journalism is a writer. And so when you got that, if you mean with that ink pen, we definitely want to put you and show off your works on DMVDaily.news. So just go, give us a call, shoot us an email, or sign up right there on the website to make sure you get that done. Again, we are, and I think they kind of took this from us, but of course we sent it out. Our Black History Month advertisement and podcast production rates have been lowered, and is running now through February 28th. So make sure to take advantage of that as well. Now, we're also gearing up to launch the much anticipated Value My Vote 2020 podcast. So if you're a candidate running for office, or you're an incumbent, you want to get your message out there, make sure you contact us. Every Friday now, we're going to have candidates on, and this is outside of the Value My Vote 2020 podcast. This deals with the DMV Daily radio show every Friday with our continuing coverage that we've been leading in the forefront in terms of covering the 2020 elections, which we know is still a year and a half away. But nonetheless, you got to get it in, and you want people to be educated. You can't wait till the last minute to just jam a bunch of stuff down their throat. So we've already started. We've been talking about it. You've heard Joseph Kane. You heard Philip Westry. You've heard all these candidates that we're bringing forth. Every Friday, we plan to bring you at least one candidate, if not two, to talk about why they're running for city council, Congress, mayor, city council president, comptroller, whatever they're running for in 2020. We want to bring them to you, so you, as the voter, can be more informed about these individuals and why they decided to run for office. So you want to definitely make sure you check that out each and every week as we delve in to that information and talk to those candidates. And of course, you can find all our shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. DMVDaily.news is where it's at. You can also check out our podcast and listen to them via iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, and Google Play. Watch our shows each and every day, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Periscope at DMV Daily News. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page. It's free. Don't cost you a damn thing. Just go there, hit subscribe. Actually, we're real close to a particular number that we need to adequately promote what we need to promote. So make sure you go to the YouTube page and just subscribe. That's it. It's not gonna send you no emails, none of that stuff. All you're doing is subscribing. As a matter of fact, if you want to be, if you do subscribe, that way you'll know when we're up, because I know I get it to my phone. It'll tell me that DMV Daily radio show is live and streaming. So that's a good way to keep you up to date on that, as well as go to our Facebook page and like that as well. Now, don't forget, like I said earlier, we're putting together our President's Day Public Safety Town Hall. Scheduled for February 18th, Monday, President's Day, from 8 p.m. at Union Baptist Church, 1219 Drew Hill Avenue. And we're going to talk about everything regarding public safety here in the city of Baltimore, how we move that thing forward through 2019 and beyond. We'll have some, I'm sure, mayoral candidates will show up and be there. We invited our newly appointed interim police commissioner, Michael Harrison from New Orleans. He'll be in the position by then. We've invited him to be a part of this discussion. But I want y'all to know we're going to have a panel discussion. It's going to be live streamed straight here, so people will be watching it and listening to it if they can't make it out to the church. It'll be hosted by Union Baptist Church and our great pastor, my pastor, Al Hathaway. And we're going to have some esteemed colleagues that are there that are going to be on this panel. But it's not a bunch of politicians talking. I'm just letting y'all know this. And it's not even for the newly elected police commissioner to talk either. I really hope that they're there to listen, because what we need to do is bring forth solutions by people who are actually doing this work, who are doing micro policing and targeting, and who are doing criminal justice reform, things of that sort. And we need to get these brains into this room, onto this panel discussion, along with the citizens and the community leaders, to be able to bring forth these solutions and start hashing out some of this stuff. It's not about pointing fingers. It's not about a blame game. It's not about, a pissing contest about who has what, but it's more about how do we save our community right now.
Solutions.
Exactly. Bottom line, point blank. So we're hoping that you're there to offer those solutions. We're hoping that the people who do come, who are a part of the political leadership, are there to listen, as well as to be able to give some sound advice, but more so to listen and be able to do something with what's being given that night. So make sure that you're a part of that. Monday, February 18th, President's Day. You don't work that day. So I don't want to hear, son, I had to go to work. And no. My son told me, though, Baltimore City schools supposedly have to go to school that day. But school's out by that time, 5 o'clock. So we didn't want to hear that neither. But apparently there's some makeup days, even though I don't even think we've had enough snow days to have a damn makeup day already. I don't know. But I'll find out more about that at a later time. So Baltimore City schools may be in that day, but nonetheless, it's President's Day. So February 18th, make sure you're there, 5 to 8 p.m., Union Baptist Church, 1219 Drew Hill Avenue, and join us for that. Now, if you want to get in on today's conversation, definitely give us a call, text in your question or comment to the studio lines. 410-819-2370 is the number. Or if you're watching us on Facebook Live, like Adam Jackson, Donovan Hatcher, Barack. Hey, Barack, assalamu alaikum, brother. I ain't seen you in a long time. Joseph Kane, Bobby Moore, my man T. Briggs, and a whole bunch of y'all. Make sure you go ahead and chime in right there as well. We're always paying attention to our Facebook Live page. As we get into this conversation today, I'm hoping my co-hosts eventually show up at some point, but we definitely want to get into this conversation about what's going on down there in Virginia. But before we do, earlier today, I saw, and I had to make a light of this and call attention to it only because the person involved, T.J. Smith, of course, is a friend of the program. He's been on a program before, and we're going to bring him on again. But nonetheless, of course, when he was the spokesman for the Baltimore City Police Department, his young brother was killed. And a Baltimore judge today sentenced 22-year-old Terrell Gibson to 80 years in prison for the murder of his young brother, Deion Smith, 24-year-old father of 3, and, of course, the brother of the former Baltimore police spokesman, T.J. Smith. Baltimore Circuit Court Judge Gregory Sampson handed down a sentence after Gibson stood and maintained that he was innocent. But I wanted to hear what Ivan had to say about this, but T.J. Smith, of course, makes no bones about how he feels, and he'll definitely say how he feels, but he says that judges breed repeat violent offenders by returning those who have committed violence to the streets. He told the judge this, and we can't risk the opportunity to let this young man do it to another family what he did to their family. And that was in his impassioned speech to the judge, of course.
Hassan, he got 80 years. Well, I mean, how much time? I mean, if he serves, 2/3 of that, he's still not going to be out anytime soon.
Well, he didn't say this after the sentencing.
Right.
He said this during, I forgot what it's called. I don't know. It's when they allow the family members and them to speak and give
a statement.
It's a certain statement, something they call it. He said that during that time, basically saying, but to tell a judge who's about to sentence somebody that you and your colleagues are responsible for repeat violent offenders because you continuously give them light sentences probably wasn't the best thing to say during that time. And I don't believe this rhetoric that people continuously shove down the throats. And it started under this governor, to be quite honest. And, mind you, everybody knows I like Governor Hogan, and especially Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford, who've been friends way before they became elected. But nonetheless, this false narrative that all of a sudden that these repeat violent offenders happen solely because the judges are all of a sudden so lenient in their sentencing. And as you said, 80 years, and it wasn't just 80 years. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was life, all suspended. But 80 years. And I want to get this correct. Right. The overall, okay.
I thought it was 80 years and he didn't give him life. That's what TJ was kind of upset about.
No, he sentenced Gibson to life in prison with all but 65 years suspended for the murder conviction, with another 15 years tacked on, the first 5 to be served without the possibility of parole for the gun, and both of them to be served consecutively. And consecutively, obviously, concurrently, consecutively is one after the other instead of both the sentences being kind of merged together. But Ivan, we were talking about T.J. Smith, of course, his younger brother's murderer was sentenced today to 80 years. But talking about his comments to the judge, what's it called when the judge gives you have the opportunity for the family to give a statement, an impact statement? Is it?
It's called It's called a victim impact statement.
Right, okay. And so he was given this victim impact statement before the judge made his ruling. And he says judges typically breed repeat violent offenders by returning those who have committed these violent crimes back to the streets. And we can't risk the opportunity by doing the same thing in this case. And I found that interesting that the former spokesman of the police department, again, a friend of our programs, you would say that ahead of a judge, in front of a judge and to a judge, ahead of him sentencing someone that you want to be sentenced for a very long time. And I think it still plays into this narrative like blame the judges. Like, okay, the police don't want to blame them, so they blame the judges or the prosecutors, and the prosecutors do the same thing. And at what point do you stop blaming the next person and saying, let's kind of all bring this, take some blame, everybody take some blame, and then let's move forward on how we can reform the criminal justice system. And that doesn't always mean put people behind bars forever, right?
Well, I think, TJ's in an emotional state. He's hurt. He's angry. The only thing he wants is life. Judge Sampson sat and listened. He gave that man an 85-year sentence. I don't think what TJ understood is that if you were just given a life sentence, technically you're eligible for parole after 12 to 15 years. Yeah, the governor needs to sign something, but you don't know. You could have a governor who says, hey, the way criminal justice reform is going, if you did a murder, after 20 years, you should be able to be released from murder. With an 80-year sentence, he's got to do 40 to 45 years before he's even eligible.
Easily.
So in essence, he gave him a stiffer sentence than the life sentence would have been. But I mean, look, TJ, he's angry, he's upset. From an officer standpoint, and a family victim standpoint, he's just hurting. And so, I mean, when you're hurting, you sometimes lash out, and he's seeing a sentence that doesn't say life, and that's what he's thinking. So, I mean, my condolences, to Absolutely. TJ and his family. I can only imagine the hurt and pain. I've been through having lost friends to gun violence, but never actually a brother. So, I mean, I look at those statements by TJ, who just wants justice for his brother.
Absolutely.
I can understand. I can understand the comment, but Ivan, I'm just concerned that all this rhetoric against judges, and you said this a couple of weeks ago, that it's going to make a lot of these judges feel, well, I don't want to get put in the spotlight because I let somebody off too early, or I gave them,
well, you're starting to see sentence. That. Like, you had the big uproar. Perfect example. We had the big uproar about bail. Right. And now we had a case the other day, a person who has never been in trouble a single day in his life, a person that's married with 3 kids, has a great job, and a person that got into an argument where his relatives, his cousins, got mad with him after they had attacked his car, and we had the pictures to show it. And then he took charges out against them. They went and took charges out and accused him of trying to hit them with the car, even though there are no injuries. State's attorney's office automatically allowed that to be charged, and he was charged with first-degree assault. We go in front of the judge. The judge holds him no bail. No bail. Now the family was like, oh, well, we didn't really want him to be held no bail. So now they're breaking their neck trying to say, okay, you know what? we weren't real truthful. So what you have are judges who are like, you know what, if you're charged with a felony at all, I'm going to hold you no bail. At the end of the day, more people will suffer. They'll be held without bail, and they're just going to be held. And I think when we push too hard to go one way or another with the system, then we want to sit down and now all of a sudden, oh my gosh, you know, why are we doing this? Remember, this is a man here who'd never, ever been arrested. We couldn't even find that he had even had a speeding ticket, has a great job. He's going to lose the job. His family and his wife of 3 children, looks like if he doesn't get out in the next 30 days, they probably will be evicted. And so, I mean, the criminal justice system and what's going on, you keep attacking the judges, but eventually, you know, you never know. Someone in Baltimore City can get mad at you and take out charges, and boom, then the state's attorney's office charges you, and then there you are. And that's why we have to really sit down and allow the judges to do their job.
Yeah, that'd be nice. You know, at some point, you know, the judges allow them. And, you know, this is what I always felt in that case was, so to me, the Governor Hogan was wrong all the way around the board. He started this fight back years ago when
it actually was Davis. Former Commissioner Davis was the one who had this chart with T.J. Smith sitting right there, and they called all the judges out, these repeat violent offenders.
Well, no, I'm talking about years this was 2015, 16, when the judges, remember the governor invited, this was during that whole violent crime stuff with Catherine Pugh, just became mayor, and they had this big strategic meeting downtown. Mm-hmm. The governor said, I'm going to invite all these people down, the mayor and what's called the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, right? And the judges are included on that. So the judges said, we're not coming because we can't be biased. We can't be seen as biased. So we're just going to stay out of this meet. Well, the governor got pissed, as if they were kind of just saying F you when they were basically doing their job to say we're not supposed to. And he took the money from the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, which all but made that defunct now. Yes. Which is a bad issue that I wish somebody would raise this issue. Hint, hint, Madam Clerk of the Circuit Courts. That should be your responsibility. But to bring this group back together, because that is the nuts and bolts of the criminal justice system. It is. And we start seeing now transportation and other things are falling apart because they don't have this monthly meeting anymore because the governor wanted to play like a child, take the little $250,000 a year that was only being done to pay for the staffers and the management of this each month, to have these judges, Division of Parole and Probation, everybody that dealt with the criminal justice system, from the public defender's office, the clerk's office, all the way down the board, that once a month they have this, luncheon. I'm sure you've been there before. Yeah. And now he takes the money and gives it to the mayor's office, who then puts it in her criminal justice office, and that money disappears. Nobody's getting funded to do this anymore. That's defunct. And so that began this feud between the governor's office and judges, and everybody. The judges are so bad. The judges are this and the judges are that. So it makes it easy because there's no report on people saying, well, this judge gave this many sentences. There's no...
Well, and every case is different. One of the things I tell people is that under the law, it is the state's attorney's office, the prosecutors, that have the control and power in sentencing. If they say, hey, judge, this person... The judge doesn't call the charge. It's the state's attorney calls the charge. So if you're charged with first-degree assault, now all of a sudden the state amends the charge and says, okay, plead to second-degree assault. And in pleading to second-degree assault, the state offers you 2 years. If the court says, look, you know what? They've been in jail 9 months. 9 months is basically a third of the sentence so I'm going to give them time served. If the state says, no, we don't agree to that, then it can't happen. The only way a sentence happens is if the state is in agreement. An agreement meaning they may not say anything, but by saying nothing, then the court's assuming that it's okay. But if the state says, we object to what you're doing, Your Honor, then it won't happen. That's the law.
Oh, wow. So if the state actually objects to it, even though their recommendation may have been more, as long as they don't object to what this judge does, then it can go through. But if they did object, that would stop.
That's what plea bargains. Now, at the end of sentencing, the sentencing is the judge's discretion.
Right.
But for a plea bargain, that's how it works with the plea bargains. When the judge says, you know what, I don't feel comfortable. There are a number of judges when the state's attorney's office is saying, hey, we're going to offer you, like there's a judge who doesn't believe that if you have a gun, you should receive 6 months. The state's attorney's office is offering you 6 months. And that judge is like, well, you know what? I'm not accepting that. I believe in a year. And so, but, that's the judge, and, it's something that they'll make a decision. Now, the judge will also tell you, you may want to postpone this case to next week when I'm not in this court because I don't believe in anything less than a year for handgun charges. So, just the whole way you do it, the criminal justice system is confusing, and it's not as simple as people try to make it to be.
Right. What they see on Law and Order.
Yes.
But you can find out more about the real system of the criminal justice on Law and Disorder with Ivan Bates, which will be premiered again tomorrow in its first episode on DMVDaily.news. So definitely want to make sure you get past it and see that. So we got to talk about what's going on down in Virginia, right? Because when we had talked about this in our pre-meeting productions, right, we all kind of had a viewpoint and, looked at it from a different angle. And for those who don't know, of course, I don't know where you've been living at, but the current governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, who, and I want y'all to realize the governor in Virginia, number one, only serves for one term, right? 4 years. That's it. They're not allowed 2 terms like most governors or indefinite amount of terms like the lieutenant governor of Virginia. They get 1 term, 4 years. That to me always baffled me. But nonetheless, he was elected, and theirs is in different odd years than Maryland. So they get in their elections in 2017 when he was elected, the current governor. He took office in 2018. And of course, recently pictures have surfaced of a person in blackface and a KKK robe. At which time last week he says, "Oh, I apologize, my bad. This was a long time ago. I should have never made such a thing happen." And then comes back 2 days later and says, "Oh, no, that wasn't me. I'm not resigning. I don't know. That clearly wasn't me in this picture. My bad. I thought it could have been me." Went on this whole long 45-minute press conference with his wife next to him, which is kind of bizarre in and of itself from a communication standpoint. Even at some point being prompted by a reporter to moonwalk on the stage because he talked about how he did put blackface on at least a little bit back then when he was doing a skit of Michael Jackson. So we fast forward to the day, every political leader across this country is calling for this man resign, at least in the Democratic Party. Yes. You don't hear Republicans talk about this too much at all.
No.
And the funny thing is Republicans control the House over there in Virginia. So the question now is, he clearly doesn't want to resign. Members of his own party want him to. People from across the country, every major political candidate for president have called on him to resign. Both former governors of Virginia have called on him to resign. He won't do it, but if he did, the lieutenant governor would be the African-American young man, 39 years old, Justin Fairfax.
Yes.
Just recently elected. Great brother.
Yes.
But now you got reports surfacing that he has sexual misallegations that happened back in 2004 during the Democratic National Convention, whereas though a right-wing media site published this political turmoil, so to speak, in the state. It was actually picked up by the Washington Post, who decided against actually covering the story altogether and reporting on it because they had apparently reached out to the woman who made the allegation after he was elected. She reached out to them, basically letting them know that Mr. Fairfax allegedly assaulted her back in 2004 during their time in Boston during the DNC's national convention back then. They could not find any kind of corroborating evidence to move forward with the story, so they chose not to publish the story. Now, mind you, at 3:00 in the morning last night, Justin Fairfax's office put out a statement stating that this, of course, is false. He's never assaulted anyone ever in any way, shape, or form. They're considering appropriate legal action at 3 o'clock in the morning. But now they also made it seem like, well, the Post said, the Post didn't run with the story, so clearly it's not true. And they found out this woman is incredible, where the Post kind of came back and said, nah. We never said the woman wasn't credible now. And we just didn't run with it because we could not corroborate her allegations at the time. But they never felt like there wasn't no foul play.
Yeah.
Right? And so now we have this brewing on one side, and you got the governor's stuff brewing on the other side. And now the question is, and looking under Virginia's constitution, if the governor has to resign, of course, the lieutenant governor becomes the governor, right?
Yes.
But if there's no lieutenant governor, then a man by the name of, what's their attorney general? Mark Herring, who is, and this is convenient, he's the attorney general for Virginia, who would then become the acting governor. But he's already decided that he's running for governor in 2021. Right? And so he would be that, and it almost makes you wonder, was he the one who kind of put out this Post story to kind of dilute the water? Because there's a lot of questions. Like, so if Justin Fairfax became governor, right, there was no guarantee that he was going to run for governor in 2021.
Yes.
But he would almost have to now that he's assumed the office, right?
Yes.
And he would still be able to have that 1 4-year term. But remind you, a lieutenant governor is not term limited. So he could have stayed lieutenant governor for as long as he wanted.
Yeah.
But if he assumes the position of governor now, then he's got to run in 2021 against the guy, Mark Herring, who I'm sure is a Democrat.
And the other thing
doesn't
is,
want him to run.
He wanted, Justin lost to him originally for the attorney general nomination, the Democratic Party.
Right. 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Prior. Yep.
So this guy is already angry that the brother jumped him in power. So who do you think did the story?
See, and this is, I'm telling you, it's almost bad in Maryland politics. I'm loving it right now. But I'm not loving the fact that we have what we have because, I mean, it's egregious. But here's my question is this, right? The current governor, he hasn't done anything. And I've looked through and I still got half of my notes here, going through the Constitution, going through everything I could find. There's nothing there that would make them or enable them to impeach him, right? And it doesn't appear that Republicans who control the House in Virginia want to even do that. Because think about it, as a Republican, you're like, okay, if we impeach him, then we put this guy Fairfax in. That probably might not be the best thing for it. But if we keep him there, he's a story that we can continuously, I mean, that's like the treat that keeps on giving, right?
Yeah.
So why impeach him if we could just have him there and he's a weakened candidate if he stays there, and it gives our party the best chance of taking back the governor's mansion because we can just point to everything in his past. And so, but the question is it impeachable? Is what he did 35 years ago impeachable? I would say no.
I mean, when you look at today, did he do something wrong today? I think you'd also have to say today, no. 35 years ago in 84, yes, without a doubt.
But did he? I mean, that wasn't illegal 35 years ago. You're right. Yeah. It wasn't. I mean, you know more than anybody. You used to live down there. Then. That was the norm back then.
I lived down in Virginia during that time period. And, he was in medical school probably about 25 miles from where we lived. And living in Virginia during that time period, in that part of Southern Virginia, was like living in the South. People rolled around their pickup trucks with their rebel flags and their shotgun. They called me boy and the N-word so often, I thought it was my second name the way it was. Racism and the good old boy network and the way that they wanted to show you as they viewed it, white pride, was terrible. And that's the way Virginia was in 1984. It's one of the reasons I was like, I got to get up out of this state as quickly as I can and never returned. But even though that was what it was then, now it was wrong then and it's still wrong now. I think when you sit down and look at it like this, and I compare a lot of things to crime. There's no statute of limitations on certain crimes. If you do something so brazen, for instance, there's a young lady, you two go on a date, and you force yourself on her. Hey, everybody did that back then. Got you drunk, gave you a Mickey back in '84 and forced you on her. That's rape. And now when you sit down and look at it now, you could still be charged with first-degree rape. You know, when you sit down and look at what he's done in terms of blackface, that was wrong and it's immoral. And now, 35 years later, it's still immoral.
But it's not illegal.
But it's immoral in the sense that you look at the way in which he carries himself. When you look at the actions of the governor's not supposed to do actions that make Virginia, quote unquote, under the Constitution, look bad. And they have a moral clause, if I'm not mistaken, morality clause. That would be my argument, that it was immoral 35 years ago and it's still immoral. And that's how I view that situation. Like I said, when you look at a crime that was what it was and there's no statute of limitations, you still can be charged now. And when you look at something immoral back then and now you look at it now, it's still wrong. Wrong is wrong is wrong.
May be wrong, it may be moral, and I know it's pissed off a whole lot of people, especially the African-American community. But I still don't see it being impeached. Matter of fact, I just received word that the Speaker of the House, Kurt Cox, again a Republican, has said that they are not going to pursue impeachment charges against the governor. So now, if he doesn't decide to step away, there's no mechanism for them to force him out of this office.
And the problem that you have is you have the Democrats down there shooting each other. And let me just tell you, it has been a long time for Democrats to get a footing in the state of Virginia. Without Northern Virginia, that state is just as red and Republican, and you have some of the worst issues in terms of the thoughts and views and the roles of not just blacks but females and any other minority. And it's just to me in '84 was a very, very bad place to be and to grow up. Just those thoughts and views.
Well, here's the question, though. If it's immorally wrong and it's a slippery slope, right? So as you said, there's this moral compass. So if that is to be said and he has to go, then if more information comes to surface about this sexual allegation against Mr. Fairfax, and of course in this Me Too movement, going on right now, where does the slope stop as opposed to whether it's legal or not? It's kind of like, okay, yeah, but it might not be. I think more people will be willing to get rid of somebody because of sexual allegations than they would even for something as racist as this from 35 years ago.
Well, I think the interesting thing with Lieutenant Governor Fairfax is he's already come out to say, look, we met each other at the DNC. We went back to my hotel room. It was consensual, and there was no going back and forth. It was consensual. Now, does she have something in writing? We didn't have cell phones, text messages, things like that. So right now you have a he said, she said. And remember, we have a person, who is on the U.S. Supreme Court. If you look at the he said, she said stuff. So to me, the interesting aspect has been the Democratic Party is pretty much saying, hey, we're going to have zero tolerance in reference to these racial issues. And then I guess how far do you push it in terms of he said, she said? It's very interesting, but there is no doubt when you look at that picture that Governor Northam has already said, yeah, I dressed like that and I did those things. Matter of fact, he even said it's very difficult to get the black tar off your face.
Right.
I mean, come on, man. That ain't one time you've done it. That's multiple times that you've done it. I mean, it was just a different world. I can't, let me tell you, to be 16, 17, to run through woods from white people because they're calling you every N-word on earth and you're on the white side of town instead of the black side of town where you belong. To have a pool when it's 105 degrees, the only pool in the black part of town that I lived in, and you have to sit there and watch white people swim, and you can't go to the club because you're not black. I mean, racism was so common and so accepted back in 1984 that, you know what, you did it, you're wrong, and I don't think you should be governor.
Well, we want to hear from you. Do you think you should be governor? Do you think the lieutenant governor should be governor? And what's next for Virginia? Because it seems to be an all-out show, if you know what I mean. I've been told by mama and my sons to stop cussing as much, so I'm trying to withhold some of my statements. But we're going to go to the phone lines. Caller, you're on. Welcome to the DMV Daily Show.
Brother Thomas.
T. Briggs.
Hello.
This is Bobby Moore. I don't know if
I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
Bobby.
Bobby Moore. I'm sorry. I thought you was Brother Thomas.
No.
Go ahead, sir.
No worries. How you doing, Hassan?
I'm just right. How you doing, sir?
Good. So yeah, just had one little point to bring up with Virginia, and some might think I'm comparing oranges to apples, so we'll see. I definitely agree that Governor Northam should resign. He should not be governor in the state of Maryland. What he did with blackface, as well as posing KKK, is despicable, and it cannot be represented in any way, but particularly in a way when you're in a position like governor of the state of Virginia. So I applaud everybody on the Democratic side who has asked him to resign. I think it's a right step in the direction, and it's unfortunate that he has not done it. But it's also it's interesting, like, this is a very blatant act of racism. It's a very ugly form of racism. And it made me think about, like, the subtle types of racism that we've heard from our state elected officials here in Maryland. Like, for example, Mike Miller in, I believe it was 1980, voted for saying that, Baltimore is an effing ghetto, that it's SHIT, and basically talking down to a city that is majority black residents and describing it as, SHIT and an effing ghetto. And so, it's just, I think it draws a scenario where historically we've seen Democrats call out each other for blatant racism, yet not make that same call when there is leadership that says subtle racist things or things that don't necessarily represent, large cities within their state. So I saw a lot of, like, people, elected officials in Maryland, calling for Northam's resignation. But I have to question, like, if you're standing against racism in the Democratic Party, sure, stand up against somebody who uses blackface and poses as KKK. But why not stand up against somebody like Mike Miller, who describes Baltimore City as an effing ghetto and it is SHIT? So are they? I guess that there's just different expectations for holding Democrats accountable when it comes to overt racism versus subtle racism, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense.
It does.
And I can tell you this, Bobby, that I think a lot of individuals that are in office today would have never allowed for that type of subtle racism coming from Mike Miller back then. And I think, I think, in my personal opinion, I thought a lot more of them would have stood up to him this time around, just being elected, even maybe taking a shot at, knocking him off as Senate president. But it showed how powerful he is in terms of his finances and his level of engagement in the overall Democratic Party here in the state of Maryland, because not a single one of them stood up and opposed him at all.
Correct. Yeah, and I think that's, the point that I'm trying to make is, sure, I guess it's, it's great that, especially in Maryland, we have elected officials who say Governor Northam and Virginia should resign. but many of them had the opportunity to ask Mike Miller after he made racist remarks to resign, and there was silence.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just think that if you're going to call out racism, it has to be, not just for these ugly, overt types, but, sometimes more. And I don't even think what Miller did was subtle. I think it was blatant, but, I guess it's not as open as posing in blackface. That's the only.
And that's the crazy part, Bobby. If you see the video of this, he thought he was off the record when he was saying this in a video with a television station, right? And he even said, "Oh, y'all not taping that, are you?" Right? Laughing and joking about this as if it's okay, as long as nobody can hear me.
Yeah.
Correct.
And,
So I'm glad that there's some level of accountability for holding our Democratic Party elected officials accountable to not being racist. But, I hope that also extends to here in Maryland when there are more subtle types of racism displayed by our elected officials. And, it was I couldn't believe it. I actually tweeted out to my state elected officials if they disagreed and asked for Miller to apologize for those statements, and they wouldn't respond to me. So I think you're right, Hassan. It shows that he has a lot of power, and some people aren't willing to stand up to that power, even if there's blatant racism at play.
Right. All right, Bob. Thanks for that insight.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's a good point that he's making. I mean, I'm sure he would say, look at the city at that time when I was making the comments. It was 300 plus homicides on a almost annual basis, and da-da-da-da. And he'll go on to say it wasn't racism, more as geography. And, of course, I represent Prince George's County. How could I be racist and blah, 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 blah. But the way it was made and how the statement was made, and even Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle re-released that video just last year in making their point in their efforts on some bill, I forgot what it was, during the legislative session, and not one single African-American elected official across the entire state, especially or in the city of Baltimore, would say one thing about that. It shows the power that he has.
Yeah.
We got somebody on?
So, folks, if you're on hold, you have to hold on. Don't hang up. For some reason, folks are hanging up on us. I guess because they can't hear the audio, and I'm trying to make it so that they can hear the audio, but you got to hold on the line. Don't hang up.
All right. So, at the end of the day, politics is going to be politics. But, again, I just think it for some strange reason, I don't believe that this report on Justin Fairfax just came out of the clear blue sky. Like, that was planted.
Yeah.
That was a story that was planted that, again, was said earlier from a right-wing conservative news site that was basically put in the mud because nobody, there was no corroboration. When you're a reporter, you have to have some type of corroboration. And the Washington Post apparently talked to this lady, felt like there was no corroborating evidence to sustain what she had said, the allegations she was making. Yeah. So they buried the story. They never ran with it. But now they're kind of like rehashing this. And they even went so far as to kind of, they made a post about it, actually. The Post did today, and basically saying, well, yeah, we did talk to the lady. This is what happened. And it wasn't sustainable. But what Justin is saying, no, don't go that far. We did not believe her, right? Yeah. We just didn't feel like moving forward with the article, which basically says you don't believe her.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a play being made that, this guy might be bad for us, but we damn sure don't need a black man to lead us.
Oh, yeah.
Who's that? That's T. Briggs?
Yeah, what's going on, big brother?
What's happening, Captain?
Hey.
Hey, Ivan, what's up, man? How you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, one must have to ask the question. The wannabe mayor of Baltimore City, who's from Alexandria, Virginia, down there, what's his name? Hakeem, Talim, what's his name?
Kahan. Right, Kahan Dillon.
Did he drop the dime on them guys to try to get into politics?
Did he drop a dime on who? On the governor?
On the governor. Since he's supposed to be so politically connected down there. Did he drop a dime to try to get the upper hand? We
I don't
know
know
he ain't
about
gonna
that.
get no.
But here's
we know
what
he ain't gonna get no politics in Baltimore.
But here's my question, though. The governor didn't just come out of the clear blue sky. This man has been a former state senator. He was the lieutenant governor before he became governor. You mean to tell me out of all those elections he'd have had that nobody until now came up with this picture to say, look at him back in. This was a yearbook picture. Like, your due diligence in political opposition research is to go back and find stuff on people. And the yearbooks are one of the first places you go to try to find something that you've said or done to kind of take out a character, even if it's not as egregious as this. I just find it hard to believe that it took this long for all these opponents he's had and for all this to happen, for this to just come out of the clear blue sky years after all of this. I mean, that's just like...
Nah, this ain't just happened, man. This is something that was there the whole time.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to tell you what just happened. Somebody just decided to use it for their political gain at this time.
Exactly.
I can't see the lieutenant governor doing this because he has some stuff going on himself. So who would be the next best candidate, you know? It's who?
I think it's that attorney general, man, Mark Henry.
Oh yeah.
My point exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly who it is. Hey guys, you guys started off the show earlier mentioning something about T.J. Smith and his witness impact statement, right?
Right.
Had T.J. Smith ever given a witness impact statement before?
I don't know if he's ever been a victim in crime. I'm sure he definitely has. If he'd been a previous victim, if not, I would. I don't want to assume, but let's just say for purposes of this conversation, the answer is no.
Okay, then is he doing it because I think I read somewhere, or heard somewhere that he's now a candidate for Baltimore County's police chief?
Police chief? Really? I mean, I know he's the spokesman out there for Johnny O.
Yeah, he's one of the applicants for Baltimore County.
When you have
really?
a family member, who's been murdered, without a doubt, every single family member has an opportunity to have a spokesman on their behalf. I'm sure he was standing there speaking on behalf of his family, in reference to this particular issue. Without a doubt. I mean, it was his brother. So
It's his brother.
Yes.
His brother. But to blame the judge, Ivan, I'm so sick and tired of them blaming the judges for basically not how should I put it? Not throwing the book at some of these guys because case in point, I've even heard some people now saying that it's because of the judges that the gun trace task force was allowed to do what they have been doing.
No, it was the state's attorney's office. I can tell you that because I said it was the state's attorney's office and the police department. They knew who these corrupt cops were and they kept putting them on. I understand
That's
exactly what you're saying, but look, I've done, I was a prosecutor in homicide, so I dealt with a number of victims or families. When they're hurting, I mean, T.J. Smith has got to be hurting, and this the person that you have the opportunity to be in the same room who killed your brother, and, you weren't there, and you're a police officer and you're serving to protect, and here's this person right there. You want that person to feel the pain to be gone forever. And, a lot of times when they say hurt people. So he's lashing out and he's blaming the courts because he's got to blame somebody. I don't know this person's record. For all we know, this person could have been on probation before and, was out on probation and had a little slap on the fingers or a wrist or something like that. I don't know, the background, but I do know that victims of homicide, they're hurting and their family member. When I say victims, they're family members. Are the victims of homicide. They're hurting. Look, I've heard people say all types of things and blame everybody. I had one lady, her poor son on an attempt murder, they sitting up there blaming his second grade teacher because they didn't invest in him the proper way. And so I'm just, you don't know. I mean, he's just hurting at that moment in time. That's how I looked at it.
So, like you say, hurt people, but to turn around and blame the judges for this, I can't go along with that one. But what I can go along with, like my man Hassan said earlier, is that some way that we need to come together and figure out, reform on this stuff, to try to figure out what's the best way to deal with this stuff and how to deal with this stuff. Now, back to what I was saying about T.J. Smith. Was he speaking as a true brother? I'm not trying to take his pain away from him. Was he speaking as a true brother, or was he trying to speak as a candidate to show Baltimore County what kind of police chief he will be if he's selected?
Yeah, I think that's maybe a stretch. I don't think TJ was going in there with any assumptions or anything based off of Baltimore County. I doubt that was even in his mind at that moment in making that statement. And I could be wrong, but I just don't see that as being a reality. There's no cameras around. There's none of that. So you're not playing to the cameras. You're in a courtroom. And, I think, for him to kind of blame judges for being too lenient at a judge when you're asking the judge to give them a very strong sentences probably wasn't the best approach, right? But nonetheless, I don't think it was done for any kind of means other than for him to be there, in memory of his brother, to testify, in love and memory of his brother, and to ask for what probably most people will do in that situation, the harshest possible sentence there is, right? Because people can talk about criminal justice reform, right, in the abstract. But when that happens to you and your loved one gets murdered and taken from you, whether it's your child, your brother, your mother, I really doubt that most men and women are going to go in there and say, oh, kumbaya, let's reform the system and let that brother or sister go with a slap on their wrist. Most people are going to go in there either, I know me, give me 10 minutes in the room with his ass. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Or put his ass in front. You ain't got to give him life. Give me 10 minutes in there, no holds barred. You know what I mean? I don't see people being as I don't want to say I ain't gonna say that, but I don't see them being as kind-hearted as they are when it's in the abstract. Because you want criminal justice reform and you want things to go a certain way for certain people, but when it happens directly to your family by somebody you believe was malicious in intent, especially in this case, apparently those boys were friends for a very long time and grew up together. So I'm sure TJ probably knew this young man for years, and apparently they had dinner together and all that. So that's an even bigger slap in the face. Like this is your.
I tell you what, though, I would feel better about this whole situation, man. I know TJ is a smart guy, very smart, very, very intelligent brother. I'm not taking nothing away from his fame right now, but as what we went through with that gun trace task force and other cricket cops, I would have felt better if he had come out against them as vicious as he came out against this boy.
Well, don't worry, though. All is going to be well with the criminal justice system because Bow Wow says that he was wrongfully arrested. So that's going to lead to a national movement that's going to reform the entire criminal justice system. And Ivan Bates will be his representation.
Well, you already got a movement going on with.
Can't say that, Hassan. What happened in Atlanta yesterday? What's the dude's name? 21
Savage got locked up.
Yeah.
Got locked up
by ICE.
He's been in the country. He stayed in the country past the time he's supposed to have been here.
Man, people thought that man was from Brooklyn, New York.
They thought he's from Atlanta.
No, they thought he was from Atlanta.
From Atlanta.
He was telling people he was from Atlanta.
Yeah, that man was from overseas some damn way, man. Come on, man.
Hey,
Y'all gotta
DK.
do better, man.
Hey, guys, great show, man. Thanks for taking my call.
But you got
man.
you got a criminal justice reform going on right now with Jay-Z and what's his name that got arrested and was freed, the rapper that was with
Meek.
Meek Mills.
Meek Mills.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Meek is doing it,
Yeah.
and I gotta give him
Yeah.
credit, man. That man
Yeah.
is putting his voice to. He like, man, look,
And he put
I
a
don't
lot
know
of
what
people
they did
together.
to him over to jail, but
Yeah. They put a lot of people
They
together.
reformed him
They
real
have
quick.
they have some big
yeah, they do.
legal advocates, in the industry that are actually on there. We have another caller. Caller, you there?
Yes.
Okay. You're on the air on the DMV Daily Show. Good evening.
Yeah, I was just wanting to comment on what's his name, Ralph Northam, and that whole whack press conference to sit up there and to come up as an excuse that you was Michael Jackson in the 1984, and then you said nothing about the KKK cartoons, and then when the reporter asked him if he could still moonwalk, he gonna look to the side like looking for space to moonwalk.
Yeah,
he was going to if his wife didn't give him that look.
Stopped him. His wife stopped him.
Are you crazy?
Right.
That is not the right place nor time. And, I think they made a lot of, and I'm glad you're talking about this, because if you looked at that press conference, from a communication standpoint, you should have never let him go up there for no 40-something minutes anyway doing that. But it's like he almost made light of it. Like, yeah, I might have did something back in the day, but, let's get past this because this wasn't me. And like you said, and for you to know that it's impossible to get that off of your face means that you've done this on a repeat. And he did that before the Michael Jackson thing, because that's why he said he only put a little bit on the Michael Jackson thing, because it's almost impossible to get off. Meaning he's already done it before, so he knows by that time that it is. So he kind of showed his hand, to us in that case. And I don't know. I think it's a disgrace. But the question still lies. If they're not going to do articles of impeachment, you can't remove them from office.
No, you can't. He has to morally say, I'm going to step down. And this is a person who pretty much has already said, morally, I don't have that compass because I should have apologized a long time ago for these actions.
Man.
Yeah, like he was saying earlier about the surprise. Like, I think he said this was like 35 years ago. So you ain't see this yearbook, and then it was another picture from the same year. Somebody dressed up in blackface and said, "Who would imagine Diana Ross graduating medical school?" And I'm looking like,
I think
this
that's
is what y'all doing about. This is what y'all do in your spare time.
well, yeah. I think that's. I mean, look, I was like I said, I was in Virginia during that time period. And that's just how the culture was. I mean, it was nothing. I mean, like I said, it was just a very racist culture.
Well, who was on that yearbook committee though? I mean, didn't somebody say, "Hey, this might be a little bit inappropriate even for the 80s?"
No, they were probably a part of it.
They were part
probably
of
was
it.
dressed up the
That's
damn
how
self.
it was. You don't understand.
Right.
They didn't. They looked through black people. You weren't there.
But
You
I
were-
think you're right. A
for
teacher,
anything other than they needed.
a teacher
Somebody
should have been
right.
overseeing it.
They're
like,
in
maybe
medical
that's
school.
the-
They're in
dean
medical
or-
school.
right.
I mean, think
Okay.
about it. They didn't gone through high school.
Right.
Then they're in college. This is the top of the top because they're going to be doctors. That's just the way they viewed it.
Man, that
Dude,
is sick.
let me tell you, you just don't even understand. Like I said, I lived in a town in Hampton. You had the black part of town and you had the white part of town. And there was one road that separated both sides. And you stayed on your part of town. You better not be caught on that other part of town when it's dark.
But
or
you
you
like
could have-
right though. You could fit on both sides, right?
Yeah, you right. But you know what? They
So they
still
saw
use
your
that.
hair.
They use that N word and a heartbeat on me, boy. Shoot, it was just a different way. Look, it was terrible.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Did you have anything else for us, caller?
No, just pretty much that, and just because he could have said a lot of things to get out of it. I was drunk and I woke up and I saw this black stuff on me. They told me to take a picture. I was drunk at a party. There was a lot of stuff he could have said, But then to sit there and, number one, not know who Michael Jackson is, you're going to sit there and ask, what's the singer's name? The disrespect is just ridiculous. Like, it was so much stuff they could have said. But that's what you go with? That's the speech y'all please to go with? For a governor, everybody should be fired after that one. Everybody should be fired.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Thanks for calling.
Right, thank
and
you.
You know what the audacity is, too? So this guy meets with black legislators, right, behind closed doors, and then meets with black members of his staff to see how they would feel about him staying on and not resigning. And yet you have yet to meet with the black population that overwhelmingly, like 88%, voted for you. He has yet to come out and meet with the black press, with the black constituency, nothing. Make any statements towards it, but you secretly meet with black legislators, I guess, under the assumption of if I can get it past them and they forgive me, like we were just talking about with the Mike Miller thing, if they can get behind me, then I guess I'm good. You know what I mean? That to me, that pissed me off beyond retreat. And then you get members of your black. He didn't get all his staff. He got the black members of his staff.
It's just, that's how they are.
The hell out of here.
We have another caller. Brother Christopher, you there?
Yeah. How's it going, Hassan and Ivan?
Hey, what's up, Chris? How you doing, bro? Mm-hmm.
So I agree with everything. I dropped off for a minute, but from what I heard, I agree with everything you're saying, Hassan, in particular. But I want to call you to task a little bit on this, brother. Mm-hmm. Like I said, agreeing with everything you said, my problem is we don't go just as hard at the black legislators who may not say these things, who may not have the pictures like these, but in their policies and approach to politics, they are no different, if not worse. We can't look at the condition of Baltimore City and go find a problem with somebody in Virginia when it as it pertains to racial disparity and the issues in communities and how people are actually being treated. Like I said, I agree with everything you said as far as what he's doing and the view and perspectives of it. But we got something within arm's reach that's way even worse. When we look at all of the money that came into Baltimore City as a result of the uprising, riots, whatever term you want to use, just so we all know that we're talking about the same thing. All of the money that has come into Baltimore as a result of certain communities giving voice to the conditions that have been perpetuated over time. And yet, where are all of the capital projects going in this city?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So, I mean, he
and
has
it's coming from our
that
own
we
people.
can hold and we can see what he was about. But other people, by their actions, they're telling us what they're about. And we don't confront them directly. We kind of talk around who we're talking about, or we kind of get to, not saying that we should be disrespectful. I'm just saying we should be far more direct. And we're not.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Yeah. Right. Makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
So let's put the names out there then. Come on, we can be direct on the shop. Let's put it out there. Because some of these main people you talk about look just like you and me. They ain't got to put black stuff on there.
I don't think I've ever been accused of not being direct.
Right.
I don't think I've ever been accused of playing too nicely. So I'll just leave that for there right now because my list is long and there's more to come.
All right
now.
Hey, Brother Christopher, by the way, you made an announcement just recently, and I don't think that a lot of our viewers know this yet, but you're looking at running for office, correct?
No, I'm not looking at it. I'm going to do it.
There's
no
we got to get you on the show then.
No, feeling around it. It's happening.
In the 5th District?
Yes, sir. Northwest Baltimore, 5th District.
All right now. Well, that means we got to get you on the show then. You hear that, Mark?
Yes,
That's
sir.
a Friday show. Got to get you on. We know we got to get you on.
Tell me when and I'll be there.
All right.
All right now.
Well,
I would also hope that, which I haven't seen in some time, I would hope that we could have debates, actual debates, not forums where there's prescribed questions and, actual debates on actual issues.
well, we're going to have actual debates. Part of the Value My Vote 2020, once we get through all the one-on-one interviews with all, we're going to have debates in every councilmatic district, live streamed, questions coming from the audience, questions coming from those who are watching, questions coming from the panelists. Now, I can't guarantee the candidate's going to show up because a lot of, especially some of the incumbents, get a little timid and they'll probably refuse to show up. But we're going to put an empty chair there with their name so people know that they did not show up. So you can,
but again,
guarantee
that's where the media actually has a bully pulpit, because people should not be allowed to not show up and not have the issues attached to them by me. And again, this is not about being personal. I don't think that it can ever be said that I've been personally attacking when I bring up issues. But people should not be allowed to get off the hook when they have a record of what they ran on. They have a record of what they have voted on since they've been in office, and then compare that to what they say they're going to do in the future. There's a past, present, and future aspect of campaigns that is always let off the hook. When I just think it's too much niceness and not enough. Let's get down to the business.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree. No, absolutely.
Well, speaking of somebody that's
thank you for taking my call, fellas. I'll get out the way.
You're welcome, Christopher. Speaking of someone that's being let off the hook for not being here, are you there, Union Boss?
Well-a-tee. Happy Monday, everyone.
Hey, happy Monday.
Well, since you're not here to give the money to the tip jar, we have a direct line GoFundMe PayPal link, one of those cash apps that you can send the money right to it.
I got you. I'm on top of it. I'm trying to remember all the things y'all were saying. I think you're right that Ralph Northam can't be impeached. I just don't think there's an impeachable offense. I think he's morally indefensible, but I don't think there's. I don't even know what you could say. Now, Justin Fairfax, if those allegations are true, that's a criminal offense. He could absolutely be impeached, but you can't impeach Ralph Northam for being an asshole and wearing black shoe polish on his face.
But could the timing be just a coincidence, Mark? What's going on? Because they don't necessarily want Fairfax to come in as governor or be considered as governor?
I don't know, because it sounds to me like the allegations were raised way before. They just weren't. The Washington Post didn't feel like they had enough corroboration to run a story on it. But the allegation isn't new. It's the publicity around the allegation that's new. So to some extent, the timing is suspicious, but it's not really that suspicious because it's not like she's just coming forward. Apparently, she came forward 12 years ago.
Yeah, and even again when he won this past time, and went to the Post after he won in 2017. It said this guy assaulted me. Now, but here's my thing: is if the Post couldn't cooperate it back then and chose not to run the story, then don't run the goddamn thing today just to back up and make it seem like Fairfax's statement wasn't jiving with it.
Well, but they did. I don't think. I mean, in defense of, and I love me some Justin Fairfax, but I'm not sure. In defense of the Post, I'm not sure that they ran the story that they would have run. What they were responding to was apparently, and this was a mistake of Fairfax's communications folks.
Right.
Fairfax's communications folks jumped on the story and said it had been disproven, and that's why the Post didn't run it. And the Post really had a responsibility to clarify that, wait a minute, we did not run the story because we didn't believe her. We didn't run this story because it doesn't meet the journalistic standards for running a story. But it's kind of like the difference between, somebody running around saying the jury said I was innocent. No, the jury didn't say you were innocent, fool. The jury said that the prosecutor didn't bring enough evidence to convict you beyond a reasonable doubt, but you're not innocent of a goddamn thing.
Right. Or I got off on them charges, but you had a jury that it was 11-1 that was actually going to convict you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. And that's how, and that's what I was saying. His press people released this at 3:00 in the morning. There's nothing good that comes out of anything that comes out 3:00 in the morning. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
I don't know who told them to release that damn thing at 3:00 in the morning.
7-Eleven and legs.
Right.
I think I think Fairfax's folks made a mistake by overplaying their hand here. Honestly, they really should have shut up about it. No credible news source. I mean, the right-wing, not-so-Republican blogs were running with the story, but no credible news source had printed anything about this. By you responding to the crazies, you gave credible mainstream news organizations a news peg on which to talk about this story. They wouldn't have had anything to talk about if you weren't responding to some right-wing not-so blog, you know?
Well, maybe we should blame it on the liquor that they all just came, I'm sure, from a victory party thinking that he was going to become the next governor in the next 24 to 48 hours. So they probably had just left the bar in the strip club drunk and said, oh, no, we got to get ahead of this. So go ahead and put this press release together before y'all fall asleep. And that's how we got what we got last night. I can't think of no other way. I mean, Northam's press conference, his communications people need to be fired immediately.
Yeah.
And Fairfax people need to be fired immediately. Like, these are just stupid mistakes that you just don't make. And I don't care if it's your politician telling you to do it. You got to be able to stand up and say, no, you don't do this, and this is why.
He might want to hire his wife.
Oh, yeah, she shut it down, didn't she? Northam's wife? She was like, I wish you would moonwalk up on this stage. Are you crazy? And speaking of morally bankrupt and corrupt, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit more today, but we're obviously not going to get to it. But that damn Super Bowl last night had to have been the worst damn thing I've ever seen from the NFL in 50 years. And I'm not even 50 years old. That's how bad it was. I mean, that was terrible.
Look, a couple of things, I think. I think you saw the genius of, I don't want to just say Belichick, but Flores, the brother who is the defensive coordinator of the New England Patriots, who looks like he's going to be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to sit down and acknowledge that he did a great job in terms of getting the defense to play. And I think you also have to say the same thing about the Rams. There were some players that just weren't ready for the big time, and I just think they have to grow a little bit more.
Well, the Rams defense stepped up.
No, I said the Rams defense balled, and
but
the Patriots defense balled.
But you said that one when they were down in the end zone, and that pass that was thrown.
Oh, he had it.
The
quarterback was off. He should have had it.
His arm was being held. His right arm was being held the whole time. The referees was not calling calls for the Rams, or at least in favor of the Rams.
They never do. Anytime you play the Patriots, I've learned this. The referees are always in favor of them. I'm telling you. Look at the damn call last night. That's why I called the national. What was it? National. The NFL. What's it stand for?
Not for long.
There's other names for it. But guess what? The dude. I mean, this is beginning of the game. A bang call, defensive play that they made. Yeah. It would have put them at 3rd and 22.
Oh, yeah.
They give him a goddamn roughing call, a 15-yard penalty, because he didn't have enough time to get himself set. Like, that's not what you do.
I know.
You pass the ball to the man. He should expect to get hit immediately.
I know.
You don't give no bullshit-ass penalty like that. I'm sorry. I know I wasn't supposed to cuss today, but that made – and now they gave them a first down, 15 yards up. Yeah. You don't give Tom Brady those type of breaks, or he's going to make you pay.
You called it the National Ferry League.
Yeah,
crying over the Patriots and their referee call.
Yeah, that was a bad call.
Wasn't inflated enough, and the referees. Look, even if they get all the calls, that does not explain 6 Super Bowl rings. You have got to.
I'm not taking that away from them.
A dominant team.
I ain't taking it away from them. They know how to cheat very well, right? They're a well-oiled machine, right? I got that.
Mark, they was holding even when they went back to certain.
You sound silly after a while, continuing to hate on this team and their.
I ain't hating on them, man. I ain't hating on the refs.
Mark, they went back a few times, and I saw holding. I saw cuffing. Okay. You know, cuffing is when they grab up, underneath the helmet and lock them up underneath the helmet. They get them between the blade guard.
Every game you can think of, you can go back.
Not as much as I saw with that game in.
But last night was terrible, though. I mean, not even the refs. I'm not talking about in the calling. I'm just saying, just the game itself. I mean, yeah, it was a good. I'm gonna tell you something. It was boring as hell.
Yeah.
The worst. But the defense from the Rams
they say if you really love
They
football,
did.
then you would love that game because it was a defensive.
It was.
It was a defense.
That's not true.
Game, but it
I
was
love
boring.
defense. I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. You gotta love defense. That was garbage.
Yeah.
That wasn't I love that game.
Like New England played a dirty game. Like I said, they are the team. They are the team that you love to hate. This period.
I
That you love to hate.
I'm from Connecticut. I'm
God.
with them all the way.
Figures you a Patriots fan. I tell you.
But
I'm gonna buy you a one-way
This
ticket.
was a team that lucked up, and got good calls up. But this team has been dominant in a way that no team, maybe since perhaps the Steelers and the Cowboys going back 30 years ago, no other team has dominated in a league. Anywhere, basketball, football, baseball, no team.
Well, no other team other than the Steelers has got that many Super Bowls, right? And
right, that's what I mean.
But under this,
the Steelers were spread out over more time. The New England Patriots for the last 10 years have been the dominant football team.
Yeah,
period.
absolutely.
Even if they didn't win, they certainly almost always went to the Super Bowl, whether they won or lost or got to the AFC title game. I mean,
sure.
You can't dispute that this has been the dominant football
there's
team.
no
That
other
Tom
team
Brady,
in the
like,
history of the
has never
NFL
loved.
that's been as dominant as New England has been over the stretch of.
Sure, you dominant when you have Inflategate and several other scandals and.
Y'all got to let this go.
What you mean, y'all? I didn't even say nothing.
No, I'm talking about Jason. You got to let this go.
Inflategate and
you're not going to be at peace
excessive
with it.
holding.
But see, I'm gonna tell you what's smart about Belichick though, that I don't think any other team really strives to do. Belichick has realized that other teams look at the season and say, all right, well, a loss is a loss. Like, we can take that as long as we can get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Belichick looks at it like, nah, the hell with that. We need as many wins because we need that first round bye. They know that if we get the first round bye, now we only got 2 games to win to get to the Super Bowl, right? So now we know we get a whole week's rest, right?
Yeah.
And we only need to beat 2 teams that are already beat up. They're tired because they just played 16 straight weeks plus another one, right? And they got the advantage. I think Belichick ingrains that in his team where no other team does that because they realize the advantage of being able to have that weeks off. And so, I give it to Bill. I can't stand Tom Brady. He's a crying, sissy punk boy, but he got a bad wife. And Belichick I got to give Belichick his due. To me, he's the best NFL coach, hands down, by far.
Well, I mean, look, even when you look at Brady, you can say what you want to say, but Brady wins. I mean, look, he is the greatest of all time. He has more Super Bowl rings than anybody. I mean, he wins. I mean, Brady's just been winning in life.
Joe Montana is the best quarterback that ever did it.
One of them. Mark, what do you say, Mark? What'd you say?
I said, y'all are hating on him because he a good-looking white boy that's the greatest of all time, and he's married to a supervisor.
No.
Y'all are all
Joe Montana is a white boy. I like him.
Giselle ain't all that. She ain't all that.
He's going.
She's a fucking supermodel.
You do know that the Patriots are the team of Trump.
Yeah, I know.
See,
and that's exactly why Mark likes him. Yeah, that's his man.
I hate Bob Kraft. He's a racist motherfucker, but I give credit where credit is due. The Patriots and quite frankly, Tom Brady are the best team in the NFL, the best quarterback in the NFL for at least the past 10 years.
I bet you President Trump won't bring in no Burger King and McDonald's for Bob Kraft and the Patriots. How about that? I bet you that. Hey, please.
I bet
get
you
out
will.
of here.
They'll probably have filet mignon.
Oh, you know it.
You
they're
know
going to have it laid out for them.
Yeah.
And like I said, Giselle ain't all that. I'll take Cynthia Bailey any day over her. Any day.
No.
That's what's
Yes, I will.
I mean, come on.
Yes, I will. I'll take
Cynthia
me a
Bailey?
fine Cynthia Bailey, Real Housewives of Atlanta. She was also a model as well.
Oh, he's
I ain't
She has
taking,
the Bailey-
I ain't
she has the
taking
Bailey
none of them
models.
goddamn housewives, nothing. I don't even watch the show, but there ain't nowhere in the world you gonna put me in a room with one of them for the rest of my life.
Cynthia Bailey actually is the more. Cynthia Bailey is actually the more tame.
Jason, I'm
Refined.
I know that Giselle Bundchen looks better than Cynthia Bailey.
Oh, please stop it! Please stop it!
You know
I would
what?
not wanted Giselle over no Cynthia Bailey.
On that note, I think we got to go.
Yeah, I think it's time to go. Y'all talking about all
Jason's
these
talking,
crazy.
yeah.
I'm trying to look this person up, Cynthia Bailey.
Who's Cynthia Bailey?
Yeah, let me see what she looks like, man.
Real
Like a
Housewives.
moon
She's-
face.
Well, I don't care.
She does not look like a moon face. Mark, that's messed up. I can't believe you talk about my Cynthia Bailey.
Oh, she bad.
Y'all look it up. And
See,
talking about?
Hassan says she's bad. See.
Oh, she hooked up with Tom Brady.
She don't look better
And
than
she's 50 years old. She's 50 years old. Oh, you
she's
talking about
50?
Giselle?
She's a former model.
Yeah, she's a former model, Cynthia Bailey, and she has the Bailey modeling agency in Atlanta.
She was never a supermodel. She was
No,
just
she wasn't a supermodel, but she was modeling when she was young, very young age, in her teenage. She has a long, lengthy career,
Last year.
and she's 50 years old.
She look a little different now. Nah, never mind. I'll go with Giselle.
I ain't going with no.
Maybe back in her younger days, I'd have took her.
I take my sisters over Giselle any
Oh,
day.
yeah, absolutely. It's just out there, but right now, I take Giselle. Anyway, we gotta go. We'll be back tomorrow, as always. But remember,
see you
until
tomorrow.
then, new promise begins with a new date. Therefore, the promise of tomorrow is greater than that of yesterday.
Free Keith Davis.
Thank you.